This is Pastor Mo. I want to welcome tonight. It is going to be amazing. And so, you know how we do as you're jumping on. Please, ma'am, please, sir, take some time to holler at your boy. Tell me good evening. Then, of course, when you see your friends and your spiritual family members, speak to them. Holler at speak to each other as you're coming in. Then, of course, as I say each week, go ahead right now and share this. Trust me, you're going to want to share this on your page so all of your friends and family can see what we're going to be talking about on tonight. We are so excited about being here. I want to welcome everybody to Wednesday in the Word tonight. It is going to be amazing. And to all my faith movers, you know we miss you so much. We know we love you so much. And to all of our friends and partners, we just thank you so much for your faithfulness and thank you so much. Listen, you remember this past Sunday we celebrated 9 years of ministry. Didn't we have a good time on this past Sunday? Can you believe it, FMC? We're 9 years old. We almost getting grown, ain't we? 9 years old, and God has been so good to us. And Jonathan McReynolds, he just worshiped us under the rug. I mean, we had an awesome time and just a great celebration. Faith Week was awesome, and so we are happy to be back tonight for another Wednesday in the Word. It is going to be amazing. Once again, as you continue to hop on and come on, please, ma'am, please, sir, share this on your page. We want to get as many people as we can to see this conversation tonight. I'm believing God and hoping if we can at least get at least 50 shares on throughout social media on Facebook, so that everybody can see and hear what we are talking about tonight, and it is going to be awesome. Well, come on, as you're still coming on, and I want us to get started tonight with a word of prayer, and then I'm going to introduce our panelists, and we're going to get this party started. Come on, let's pray. Father God, we thank you now. We give you glory, honor, and praise. We're just so honored to be able to see another day. In times like these, we realize how precious life is. And so we thank you for life. We thank you for our health. We thank you for all of our strength. We realize that all of our help comes from you. And we give you glory, honor, and praise. God, we put this service in your hands tonight. And we ask you to breathe on it, to bless us as we talk and communicate of things that are relevant to the African-American community. So, God, have your way in this place. We know you're going to favor this conversation and bless it. And so we give you all glory, honor, and praise in advance. And we seal this prayer even now. In Jesus' name we pray. Everybody said amen. Come on, at home, clap your hands, give God praise. So excited to have you with us tonight. Well, listen, once again, we thank you and welcome you to Wednesday in the Word, our midweek service here at Faith Movers Church. And once again, if you have not already done so, please share our online service tonight on your page so that others can see. We're so excited to be back, I believe, for part 3 of something that we've been doing the last couple of weeks, a kind of town hall setting, if you will, as we're talking about the state of being black in America. If you've been on planet Earth, you've already understand and know the things that have been going on in our country the last couple of weeks with a lot of civil unrest. Perhaps close to a month ago now, we all were witnesses to the tragic event of Mr. George Floyd and his untimely death. But even before then, with Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, and to see African Americans killed in a very senseless way, which created in our country a lot of protests and a lot of things that motivated people to want to do something about the injustices that they saw going on in our country. Even today, we were able to get the news from Atlanta with the recent killing of Rayshard Brooks, that those 2 officers that were a part of his killing have now been indicted, and we thank God for that. But throughout these last couple of weeks, we've been just trying to use our platform and use our voice to talk about what it means to be an African American, to be black in America, and how we navigate and maneuver through these uncharted territories or these tough times that we're in even now. And so the last 2 weeks, we've been really being more specific in talking about being black in America as it relates to the black men and the black males of our country. But today we want to go a little deeper and broaden the scope and just talk about tonight what it really means to be black in America just as a person and just as a human being. And so tonight I think we're going to have a great conversation, going to try to highlight some things, try to give some solutions to be able to help us to be able to maneuver through these trying times. And so I'm so excited about the panel that we have with us today. I have some great people that I'm going to be talking with today, and they all are faith movers, and I'm excited about that. I know many of you watching who are faith movers, you'll probably recognize them, but I'm so excited to have them to be with us today. I want to introduce them. First, I want to introduce Brian Mazik, a powerful member of our church. Him and his wife, Portia, and his entire family are so active in our church. And Brian works in the sports world. He's a great sports writer and a media personality, and he deals with sports of all kinds. And so he's going to be talking with us tonight and giving us some perspective of being black in America from the sports world and the sports environment. Is going to be awesome. And then we have the powerful Miss Stephanie A. Roberts. Amen. She's with us today. She told me, don't leave out my A now. Don't leave out that A. And she's here with us tonight. She's a great educator. She does educational consulting work throughout all of the country, talking to different school systems and school districts. And she's going to be here tonight to give us some insight on maneuvering through these times as an educator and how we can impact and educate our kids during times like these. It's going to be awesome. And then I have a very powerful man of God, Roland Powell. Thank God for him. Him and his wife, Tiffany, have been members of our church for a very long time. I have a wonderful family, 2 children, and he's a minister of the gospel, doing great things in our community. And he's going to be here tonight talking to us from a father perspective. As you know, this Sunday we're celebrating Father's Day. Come on, let's give God a shout for all of our fathers. Thank God for all the fathers who are on the wall. And Roland's going to be here tonight giving us some insight from a parent perspective of how we can deal with our kids as we're maneuvering during these times. And then to my left, a powerful woman of God who's doing awesome things, Jocelyn Shorter. She's going to be here, and we're so proud of her. Recently, she's become a grief recovery specialist, and she works in the area of grief recovery. And so she's going to be talking to us tonight about how we can deal with these times from a social, emotional perspective. And so I think we're going to have a real robust conversation tonight, and it's going to be good. And so, Jocelyn, I want to get started with you and talk to you a little bit, because even, you know, as we're witnessing the things that we're seeing in our country as it relates to African Americans and all the police brutality and all the injustices that are going on, in a way, this is very emotional for a lot of African Americans. I would dare say that many of us as African Americans are going through the grieving process. Although we did not know George Floyd personally, to watch him be murdered the way that he was, I think I grieve his life. I grieve his loss. And so as a nation, I believe we are grieving when we think about the death, the loss and the death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, all of those people, Rashad Brooks, right back to back. That's a lot of loss, a lot of death, a lot of injustice to intake. And so many people are grieving or going through social, emotional pain. What are some ways do you think that as a nation and as a people we can deal with this level of grief?
Thank you again, Pastor, for letting me be a part. And I want to say, first of all, let's classify what grief is. Yes. Grief is the normal and natural reaction to loss. Many people don't realize what exactly grief is, so they don't realize that they are grieving. I explain it to my clients as it's like reaching out for something or someone who is always there to now realize they're not there anymore. So we fear the unknown a lot of time, and grief is unknown, right? We are not born with a rule book that says when someone dies, this is what you do. So when you think of the magnitude of a nation grieving, this is grief. We have COVID. It has totally changed everything with organizations, churches, schools, businesses, at home, marriages, kids. Everyone is just at a loss right now, just with their normal pattern. And when you think of police brutality, what we have physically and visualized and saw, some things sometimes you regret what you see because you can't get it out of your mind, out of your memory. So what we're dealing with is a nationwide grief. And that is hard in itself because we have so much unplaced anger, bitterness, sadness. You don't really know what you're feeling. And that's even a feeling. And I tell clients all the time, we have to first realize what we're feeling and experiencing. We have to reveal it to first start to feel, and then you start to heal. So you go from revealing to feeling and then start to healing. Because grief is so heavy. There are over 40 different loss events. A lot of times we only look at grief as someone that has died or a divorce. It's loss of income. It's a change in pattern, what we're going through now, a change in state and schools. Anything that is out of your normal pattern is grieving. So as a nation, we're experiencing something that we've never experienced. Everything will probably never be the same. So we are adjusting. And it's traumatic and it's sudden, especially for children. They can't see their kids, their students, the classmates anymore when they're in school. They don't know as children how to place these emotions. They just know that I'm not okay and what I'm feeling is just not normal. So I would say a lot of times we have to be okay with feeling and sitting in our pain, sitting in the uncomfortable emotions to know that that is a part of life. But on the other side of grief, there's a strength that will never be described in any other thing or any other way that you can experience. When you have experienced a level of grief to this magnitude, we are all changing for the better. And from a spiritual side of it, we know that God is a healer. We know that he will heal the land, but he also wants us to use wisdom in the natural and get the proper tools and proper help that we need from professionals as grief recovery specialists, different counselors and therapists, so that we can give you the proper tools to place your emotions, to know that we have wisdom and we are using faith and we know that God heals, and in the natural we are getting the help that we need to have the proper tools to be a whole list, complete and whole in every way of our life.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. And I think I love your process that you went through with revealing, feeling, and then healing. I think that's so important because just, even as a pastor, as you were saying, going through this whole pandemic and having the loss of having people in the sanctuary when you preach, I think I was grieving that process. I think this past Friday we did a shooting, a pre-recording, and I had 50 people, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I was just screaming and hollering. I was like, I got me some people with me now because it's almost like a recovery. But I think that's so important because oftentimes we don't know what grief is. We don't know how to deal with it. And I like to say oftentimes if you don't deal with grief the right way, that sometimes it can manifest itself the wrong way. And it's so important that we be able to do that. And would you agree and recommend that during times like these, it's okay for people to visit a grief recovery specialist or go to a therapist or someone like that may be able to give them encouragement and to be able to give them hope? If you could speak to just the importance of being able to connect with somebody to just talk to them about these type of things.
Absolutely. If you don't deal with your grief, it doesn't go away. It grows with you. So we have to use the proper tools. So if we were in this building and we were told to paint the room, we would not use a knife and a paint bucket to paint. We would use a paintbrush, which are the proper tools. Because if you don't deal with it, you're just packing it down, and grief and loss and death is inevitable. So it doesn't stop. We didn't expect this. And this is sometimes heavier in a way of just your personal grief. So it's very imperative that we get the help that we need, that we seek counsel for people that are professional and licensed and certified in these areas, because we need each other. We need what everyone's story. There's strength in your pain. The weakness is in when we don't admit that we're not okay. There's strength in your pain. There's strength in your tears. And there's strength in even this season now. We cannot miss God in this season. He is really trying to get our attention. So I stress that you seek counsel, that you seek to get the proper tools to deal with this. Even when life is going great, it's so great to have a therapist and someone that's not biased, that doesn't know you, to just speak into your life and give you the different tools that you can use as we navigate through life. Because once again, there's no rule book to this. So we're trying to just do our best as we go on. And we want to be the best us. Everything flows from the heart. And grief is a heart matter, right? So if we don't get our heart together, it's heart maintenance. We get our cars taken care of, our hair. We do everything on the outside to look as if everything is good. But I often ask clients, what if we felt as good as we looked? And we can do that, and it can match up when we get the proper tools and help that we need. It's okay not to be okay. And with saying that I'm not okay and I need assistance and I need help, that is when you are strong. So I just encourage everyone to get the proper help that they need at this time, to seek counsel, because you're not alone in this. And it's okay not to be okay as long as we're not staying there.
Oh, that is so, isn't that good? That is so good. I love that. Get some heart maintenance. Come on, some of you know we need some heart maintenance. We need to get our heart together because, as she said, there is strength in your pain. Somebody ought to just come in and say that. There is strength in my pain. You may be in pain right now, but I'm telling you, God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. And sometimes when we feel like we're not at our best, that's when God is at his best. And there is strength in our pain. And Jocelyn, ooh, that was just so good. Thank you for that. And we need to know that during these times, it's okay to have a therapist. It's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay to get the help that you need. Come on, wasn't that good? Come on, man. Just give God some praise at home. I enjoyed that. That was so great. Listen, Brian, I want to kind of switch and go to another spectrum, if you will, of the conversation. One of the things that, talking about loss, that I'm just so hurt that we've lost is the sports world. I'm a huge sports fan. I love my sports. And as my church knows, this was the year that my boy, LeBron, was supposed to get his 4th title, inching closer now to catch the fake GOAT, Michael Jordan. We was inching closer to get to him. But, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a little raw tonight. I'm sorry. The fake GOAT. But, but of course, with all the COVID that happened, COVID-19, kind of put a pause to all of that. And so just seeing the loss of that, but then with all of the injustices that's been going on in our society, it is interesting to see how the sports world has responded. And they have responded in different ways. I know there was a NASCAR driver, I believe Bubba Wallace, who labeled his vehicle with Black Lives Matter. In NASCAR, they took down the Confederate flags, which was very big for them. Even in the NFL, Colin Kaepernick, the commissioner, recently said that he would be okay if an NFL team was to give him a workout and a tryout to allow him to be a part of an NFL team after many years of blackballing him and not allowing him to be a part of the NFL. And even in the NBA, now as they're trying to get ready to restart the season, there's a lot of debate going on. Some players feel like it's not a good time to start the season because it could be a distraction to some of the movements that are going on as it relates to the Black lives and other things. And others feel like, hey, we need to play, give some entertainment. How do you think, with all of this unrest, this protest, and the attention that is given now to Black issues, how is this shaping the sports world?
Well, I think it's interesting because sports play probably a larger role in our society than most people would like to even admit. If you look at COVID-19, it was an NBA case that literally shifted the country. When Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell tested positive for COVID-19, that's what led all of these major industries and major organizations to start to shut down, and sports led the way there. And if you also look at something I know you are also a fan of, WWE and with the UFC, they were leading the charge of people going back to work in a more conventional sense. Vince McMahon went through the actual trouble of going to state officials in Florida to get his performers designated as essential workers so that they could go back to work in Florida. The UFC followed suit, and then boxing followed that. So I say all that to say that sports is such a major influencer to everything in American culture that the athletes, the owners, and all of the people who really are the straws that stir the drink, whether they want to accept it or not, they have a great responsibility, because obviously to whom much is given, much is required. So I say that as we look at the things that are happening, social injustices towards African Americans. I feel like a lot of the athletes have responsibilities, of course, to speak out, but I think they also have a responsibility to speak out with a level of responsibility, a certain accountability, because you know that what you say holds so much weight, because what you back and what you advise on the people who follow you to back and to not back. Before you speak and before you give an opinion, before you state a stance, you should make sure that you are aware of how that affects, how that will affect the followers, because we live in an environment, and because I do so much of my work online, we live in a influencer, subscriber, follower generation. That is where your power and influence is dictated by. If you have 20 million followers on Instagram and Twitter, you have as much power and influence as just about anybody in the world, because you can say one thing and it's across the world in a matter of seconds. And so many athletes are in that position. Not all of them use it responsibly. Not all of them use it like LeBron does. We were talking before the show started and how he is just, in my opinion, the most important presence in the NBA, because, you can debate back and forth about him being the best player, but he has taken on this place that is so much bigger than that, because he has allowed himself to be used for positivity and social change, which I think is definitely a feather in his cap. But I'm going to tell you, just doing this job every day, because, having to work remotely with everything because of COVID, it is tough, because every day I am bombarded with negativity. I tweeted something yesterday, or a couple of days ago, and I said, we are in the midst of a rage virus. And the media, by which is a group I'm a part of, is fueling it on both ends. Because we have this right-wing group who is starting, the devil's getting in their ear and telling them, you're losing control of your country. Look at what's happening. And they're flashing just enough images to them to say, look at what's happening. You need to take a stand. You need to do something. And then those of us who are totally vibing and can relate to the Black Lives Matter movement are getting fed all of these other negative images, and we're fired up and we're frustrated, and there's no middle.
That's right.
Because the slogan is being pushed, if you're not with us, you're against us. So you can't even disagree, because they're going to tell you, well, you might as well be standing over there. Both sides. So now you have all this anger, and unfortunately, the first place people go with anger, if it's athletes, whoever it is to social media to vent it. And so here I am. I'm trying to cover a UFC event. I'm trying to cover a boxing event. I'm trying to cover a sports video game. And I cannot avoid somebody's image that is drastically one way or the other. I mean, they have a thing in a sports video game where you can customize your shirts. Now, NBA 2K was aware enough, or should I say woke enough, to put Black Lives Matters where you can put it on your character all through the game. Well, you can also customize shirts. And so now you got another group that's walking through the virtual neighborhood with swastikas on their shirts.
Oh, wow.
So it's a reflection of everything everywhere, and you literally cannot escape it. So while I would love, like you said, for sports to be an escape, there is no escape.
Because even in sports, you're feeling it. And do you think from all that's going on, is getting better, or do you think it's getting worse? Or do you see a type of improvement in the sports world as it relates to race relation, or is it just kind of staying the same? Or
Well, I tell you, it really depends on what you're doing. Like, I'm covering the New England Patriots right now, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm doing my best not to hate the Patriots because, and it's not the organization, but there's been a lot of conversation about Colin Kaepernick potentially being a fit with the Patriots because they have obviously Tom Brady just left and went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're starting a quarterback who has literally thrown 4 passes in his entire career, Jarrett Stidham. He's a second-year guy, so totally unproven. They have a backup who has been on 8 teams in like 7 years. So that it appears this would be a good spot. And it also, their owner is a very well-known Trump supporter. He's one of the 7 NFL owners who donated over $1 million to Donald Trump's campaign.
Robert Kraft.
Right, Robert Kraft. So basically, a lot of people are saying that, this would be a fantastic statement for the NFL to make if the New England Patriots, this is a team that epitomizes traditional Americana. What if they, with a owner who supports Donald Trump, is the team that signs Colin Kaepernick? When I've written 4 articles just suggesting, the comment section is enough to make you just want to go and get tranquilized.
Wow.
It is, I'm telling you, you would think that the headline said, Patriots are going to sign Adolf Hitler.
Wow.
This is how much venom is in these comments. It is just literally amazing. So do I think it's getting better? Depends on who you ask and depends on where they live.
That's good. That's good. Depends on who you ask. It depends on where you live. It is such a seriousness in our country right now that, as you said, it's almost at a crossroad where part of you feel like we're losing the country. Are we getting ready to go into a race war? And a part of you is hopeful when you see people protesting and you see all races out there protesting, when you may begin to think, well, maybe we can come together. And so it is just such a trying time. And I know it's not only impacting us as adults, but it's also impacting our kids. And so, Roland, I want to kind of swing it to you because I know as adults we feel it. We feel this sense of uneasiness, but I'm sure, I know as a parent, and you being a parent, you feel it also, but your kids feel it too. And I know as a parent, we have to have some tough conversations with our kids. Now, I know that you have 2 beautiful children, a son and a daughter, and I can imagine that during these times, you've had to have some conversations with them about what's going on and all that we're dealing with as a nation. How has that been? Can you talk to us about how that experience has been, talking to your kids about what is going on in our nation as it relates to all the injustice that is going on, and how have they received that and responded to that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Within our household, our kids, first of all, as parents, we got to just give credit to the children for being a whole lot smarter than what we think. They are very aware. They are very observant of things. They're watching everything that I do. They're watching what my wife does in terms of behavior, and so they are picking up on our cues. And so the first thing that I would say is, as a parent, I need to use discretion with them. It has to be, some children you can say certain things to, others you need to be more mindful of. And so your children, and so that's the first thing that came to mind with me is, okay, this is real. And I have a son, I have a 10-year-old son. So I've got a young black male. And so I've got to have a certain level of real conversation with him about what's going on. At the same time, I'm considering, some of the traumatic experiences that he has already had. He's experienced trauma, in his life that most adults will not experience. And so I'm mindful of that. And so what can he handle versus what is he not going to handle well? And so With regard to, just the civil unrest, he may see the news on, but he even guards himself. He's wise enough to guard his own heart. So he does not want to see the George Floyd video. However, we have had great discussion about it, and my son and my daughter being younger, I'm definitely, she's maybe not thinking along the lines that he's thinking in terms of maturity. There's a 4-year gap between them, but he experienced, the frustration, the devastation, and this is what our culture doesn't necessarily take into consideration is how our kids are processing this. And so there's been anger, but in having a real conversation with him about it, it's led to discussions that have focused us on how you handle yourself, once you step outside of our home, understanding that the love that you get here in this home is not necessarily going to be that same love that you will get out in these streets,
Yeah.
and especially dealing with law enforcement. And so I feel like in some ways we've done a good job of preparing. I think Reverend Felix said in the first town hall, he talked about this enforcement model of policing versus how other communities are policed. Now we're very fortunate to live in the area we live in, and one of the brilliant ideas so my wife, she came up with this brilliant idea that let's get to know our officers, and it's important. And so we had the officer come to our house, our normal patrolman, to do a simple security check to make sure our house is properly secured. But the real motive for me and my wife is so that the officers get to know us. They need to know us and our children need to know them, because without relationship, it could change the entire dynamic of how we interact with law enforcement there. And so I've kept it real with my son. You have to keep it real, but you have to use discretion. And that's kind of where our conversations are. I even asked my son this. I said, okay, so you see this happening where this officer murders this man. This officer murders this man, and not only George Floyd, but the other victims of murder. I asked him. I said, how does that make you then feel about the white friends that we do have? In terms of your response to them, how do you feel about them? And what he said, and it made me feel like I'm on the right path. He was like, well, Dad, what I'm learning is I'm learning that if someone is good with you and Mom, then I'm more than likely going to be okay with them too. And so he's taking cues from our behavior. And so it's really caused me to be much more mindful of what I'm modeling in front of both of my children. And so that is part of the conversation that we have. We have to have a real conversation, because they're not slow.
That's right. They're catching it too. And like my kids, they have their tablets and they're always on it. And a lot of things can always get to them. Information can get to them too. And they have to know how to process that. They have to know how to be able to analyze that to be able to make the right conclusion. That's very good stuff, Roland. And that's very good suggestions in working with law enforcement to try to create a safe environment for everybody. Now, speaking with kids and young people, I want to go to you, Stephanie, because I know as an educational consultant, you deal with young people and their education, and you deal with school systems. And I know now with all of this happening, I can imagine that it's going to have a major impact as it relates to our school systems and our school districts. At some level, they cannot just turn a blind eye to this. they're going to have to deal with this. How do you think, from all that's going on in our country, how will this impact, if it will have any impact at all, in the educational structure and system in our nation?
That's a really loaded question, Pastor. And with all that is going on, I believe that there is a pairing and a partner between two struggles or hurdles. We have the COVID-19, and then we have the elevation of the Black Lives Matter movement that is taking place with where our scholars and our kids are. And so that, in addition to the fact that many of our brown and black children were already behind in school as a result of some of the inequalities going on in many public school districts. So we have to add that into play. So when we look at that, there are really three strong areas that I think, with one bonus, using, your 3 points in the bonus, one thing we need to really look at is training educators in the area of cultural awareness. So when I speak about cultural awareness, that means educators really learning themselves, doing their research on the various needs of brown and black children in their classrooms. So making yourself aware of where Shaquan comes from and the living environment or the neighborhood that he or she comes from. The second area would be culturally responsive teaching. So even in the classroom, as we're thinking about the current state with the racial disparity and all that's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, teachers need to be aware of the fact that they need to begin to start getting some training on making the education relevant to brown and black faces. So when they open a textbook, they need to be able to see people who look like them. They need to be able to see faces in their school buildings that look like them. So not only are we talking about needing training with cultural awareness and culturally responsive education and teaching, but also restorative justice. So these are three very new terms that we're hearing now as it relates to education in the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years. They're kind of blowing up. But when we're talking about restorative justice, a lot of our school systems that have brown and black boys have high expelling rates, expulsion, suspension, detention. That's because the educators are not trained to actually work with dispelling behaviors. So working with building those relationships with the kids in the classroom, it doesn't have to get to the point that you have to have a knee on somebody's neck. Right. So in the classroom, it doesn't have to get to the point where you have to expel someone or getting to the point where they're suspended and they're out of school, and now it's even worse because they're not getting an education. And then I'm going to throw in like one big bonus. Brown and black families, we have got to become advocates for our children. We must get involved. So now that we're out protesting and we're out here, we know that Black Lives Matter. We need to actually share with our children the fact that we are actually supporting you. So if we're talking about Black Lives Matter, they matter on the street. They also matter in the classroom. We've said for a very long time that knowledge is power. Don't put all of that in the hands of the teacher. We have a responsibility as well. So when we're looking at COVID-19, the kids are being out of school, they're at home, they're getting e-learning, so they're missing out on that social, emotional piece. They're in the house with mom and dad with that parenting. They're not being able to interact in their sports in the way that they would normally interact. So I would say that we really need to pay close attention to those 4 areas because they're watching TV too. Many of them did see the video numerous times of, George Floyd being murdered, I say, and killed in our very presence on the camera. So what will need to happen? Yes, definitely, we need some wholehearted, thorough training. And I'm not just saying going to a class. I'm talking about being invested in making a change in the lives of our young people. Because when they know that all stakeholders are all hands on with making sure that it is equal in the classroom for all brown, black, Asian, Hispanic kids in the classroom, and they can relate to the learning, I think we'll see a lot of progress. But until then, these are just barriers that we need to begin to start facing and creating an opportunity to talk about them.
That's real good. That is real good stuff. And I think that's a challenge for all of us parents. Don't forget about our kids in this season. Don't forget about them, as you said, having those conversations and allowing them to have an understanding about what's going on. And then even with the COVID-19 and now all that's going on, monitoring them, making sure that they're in a good space, making sure that they're not going downward, but they're still going upward, not having friends. So that's a grieving process at some level for the kid, not having their friends to talk to and to play with. This is so important that we monitor and protect our young people. And even on next Wednesday, we're going to be doing a panel with nothing but young people and talking to them and hearing from them and trying to get their perspective about how they feel about what's going on. And I think that's critically important because they're not only our future, but they are our right now. And we got to cover them. We got to protect. Isn't this been good? Come on, didn't I tell you all this is going to be good? This has been a blessing so far. Have you shared this yet? Come on, I still want you to do it if you have not done so. Share this. They are doing an excellent job, but I know that you'll be entertained, educated, informed, and that's what we want here on tonight. Now, I want to ask this question because for the last 2 weeks, as I said, our focus have been on Black America, but more specifically relating to the black men, to dealing with the death of George Floyd. So playing off of that, our focus was more so on the men, but I'm so glad that we have our sisters with us on today because I want to ask you all this question. I think it's so important. I know, speaking for me, and I'm sure Brian and Roland, you may agree with me, as an African-American male, seeing the untimely deaths of these beautiful black men who lost their lives in an unnecessary, senseless way. As we are going out in society, it kind of makes us a little, got to be on the lookout. Got to have your head on the swivel, kind of making sure if I am pulled over by police, as we said in the first talk, doing certain things, making sure I got my license and my insurance card. I got to put my hand on the steering wheel. Don't want to do nothing that could escalate something. We are walking around as black men with a sense of concern for our lives. But at the same time, we understand it was not only the black men who were being killed, but Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland, there are black women who have been killed in an unjust way. As black women, do you all feel that sense of apprehension that we as black men feel as you go throughout society and just maneuvering through the day? Is that a sense of awareness that you feel for your lives?
I would have to say yes. These times have definitely shown that no one is exempt, female or male. And as a woman, especially, for example, if you're getting pulled over at night, just being very cautious of making sure you will, of course, like it to be people around other cars or a lit up area. My grandfather always told me to quickly hurry up and call him and have it on speakerphone where it's not noticeable, but he can hear what's going on, because these times just show us that no one is exempt. It doesn't matter if you're a young guy, it doesn't matter if you're older, so it wouldn't matter to me in my eyes in a lot of situations, depending on the character of the person, if you're a woman.
Oh, that's so true.
And I would probably want to add to that as well, traveling from city to city. And as you can see, I'm an African-American woman with a red afro. And so I am very conscious of that because as I'm traveling around to various school districts that are not in Illinois, many of those school districts, when I walk in, no one looks like me. And so when I go in, there are certain things that I am prepared for prior to even getting in the rental car from the hotel to head to the school building. I have to make sure that I'm gassed up. I also have to make sure that I have my snacks in the car with me, because oftentimes, even stopping at a gas station, they look at me with a side eye. So you talk about the way it's affecting men. I too have to be very guarded, having my cell phone on, making sure that my other brown and black colleagues and I are talking as we're driving from place to place, because it is still yet relevant whether you are a brown or black male or female. And even walking into a school building oftentimes, the first thing they may say, and I've gotten it on several occasions, I never expected you never expected me to what? To be black? To have an afro that's red? Or to be able to speak articulately over the phone and you're not able to identify what my race background is. So, I am very conscious as an African American woman with a red afro to be prepared, to have my driver's license and my insurance readily available, not in my glove compartment, but I keep it right there, to be gassed up as I'm going to and fro, and to always make sure that I'm on the phone with someone at all times as I'm traveling, because it is still yet a scary and oftentimes unpredictable time in America, even as a black woman. So I really add to that, that conversation. And oftentimes my husband is even concerned. Are you gassed up? Don't stop. I don't care if it is light outside. You're from Chicago, but you're actually driving in Syracuse, New York. They don't know you. You don't know them. Be careful and cautious of your surroundings. Look to the left, look to the right, and make sure you're not speeding when you're on the highway like you do when you're in Chicago, because you're not in familiar territory. Make sure that when you get a rental car, that you try to get a rental car with a license plate that is from the same state that you're in. So if I'm training in New Jersey, he always says, make sure you ask them if they have a car that has a license plate of New Jersey, because that will allow you an opportunity to kind of blend in as you're driving to and fro while you're in the city. So there are a lot of things that, yes, even as a seasoned black woman, I have to be aware of because of the color of my skin.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And now, Roland and Brian, you all both have experienced success in your fields. Is that something that, even in the professional world, that you all have to kind of be aware of, or do you feel like you have to work extra hard, or be extra good, or just extra articulate in order to be respected in your fields because of the color of your skin?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, most times I am one of the only black men in the room.
Wow.
And if there's a black woman, I feel like she must have came from another planet, because that definitely is not going to be there in that room. So it's like, and when you see another black person, it's like you do the universal thing, because it's like, oh, where are you eating? You know what I mean? Because we went to this event. It was only MMA writers, and it was in New York, and went to this steakhouse. I can't even remember what it was called, but I mean, it felt like the apartheid South. Wow. That's how much segregation was in the room. Wow. And one guy who I'm sure is going to vote for Bernie Sanders, one white guy came and sat at our table, and I knew he did it in almost like an atonement kind of a way, because he could see how the room was split. And he came and sat there with us and ate the whole time. And it's like that all the time. I mean, because if you just think about it, when you think about the word sports writer, most people think of like a middle-aged white man who's not in shape, maybe hasn't played a sport. Your idea is, you see me, you think I'm supposed to be who you're writing about, not the person that's writing. Or either if I am in this field, it's because I used to play. And now, this is my second career, So I get this all the time. I even get this from black people, which shows you that there's a bit of a glass ceiling that we put on each other. If I tell somebody that I'm a sports writer, they go, oh. And the oh is because, oh, you can read and write? And you get that all the time. And Unfortunately, if I tell them the publication that I write for, this is unfortunately within black community, there is this thing where people place a stigma on you, like it's almost like, oh, you're uppity. And I'm like, man, I am from the South Side of Chicago. Okay, the real South Side,
Real
not
South Side.
not the one. No, I'm from that one. I'm like, so I don't understand why. Unfortunately, too often we are creating impediments for each other within our own communities. And I always told my wife this. I said, you know, when you go out in the street and you go and you deal in the world, there's a certain level of resistance that I expect to feel. But when I come home is where I would like to be able to put my guard down. And when you come into your own community, it would be nice to be able to have your guard down. But unfortunately, you can't. And I feel that even in a virtual community, if I'm talking to other black writers sometimes, if they don't write for the same publication that I write for, there's a competition rather than a celebration. And it shouldn't be that way. So, you know, sometimes, honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, sometimes I'm just as frustrated with us as I am with everybody else. You know, that's why that song from Jonathan McReynolds really spoke to me so much. People, you know, you said you would deliver me from anything. Did you mean people? Because that's exactly where I've been through this time period. You know, I see so many people doing so many things wrong, in my opinion, on both sides. You know, I'm like, horrible. That's racism. That's horrible. Then I'm like, you tearing up you known this man your whole life, and you tearing up his store? I'm like, because you mad?
Right.
I said, bro, that's a tantrum. That's not a plan.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, yeah.
We got to learn how to be angry but sin not, and not allow the enemy that was hurting us to turn on each other. As you were saying, if you don't deal with the grief properly, a lot of times you can end up turning on each other, and that is what we don't need in our community. We need to be together. We need to be on one accord now more than ever before. And that's my prayer, that during this time that we're learning lessons, we're learning things on how we as a village, we as a people can stick together and not allow outside sources, racism, injustices to turn us against one another. And I believe by faith that there's a coming together that God is going to allow to happen in the African American community, that my brother is not my enemy, my sister is not my enemy, but together we're stronger, and that's my prayer, and I'm believing for God for that every day of my life. Come on, hasn't this been great tonight? This has been a great conversation tonight, and I thank you all so much for your impact and your influence tonight. I want to kind of end tonight by just kind of going around and just kind of giving each of you maybe 30 seconds or 45 seconds, if you will, to just kind of leave us with some hope. I always say when I'm preaching that never end a service without giving some hope. Even though you got to preach some tough words sometimes that may be tight, at the end of it, try to leave with a redemptive hermeneutic. And so, if you will, I want to just go around. We'll start with you, Brian, and just kind of things you can give the people tonight to encourage them to keep pushing, to keep focused. It would just be wonderful.
For me, and this is something that I've had to repeat to myself over and over again, faith, faith, faith. Yes. Donald Trump is not in charge. Nobody in his cabinet is in charge. No matter what that goes on, no police officer that you encounter is in charge. God is in charge. So as much as you are angry and as much as you feel this strife, you have to lean on the lover of your soul.
Yes, that's good.
And I would even add on to that God does everything for a reason. He is looking and waiting for us to grab on to his vision. This is not happening by happenstance, and taking and using every opportunity as a learning experience for not only personal growth, but also for family growth, community growth, and then lending our ear to him because he's saying some things to us. He's showing some things to us, and through this, we will make it to the other side. Hold on. Don't get discouraged. Redirect that misdirected anger, stress, and frustrations, and still know that there's a bright lining on the opposite side of all of this.
Oh, that's good. The old folks say it's a bright day somewhere. Amen.
So what I would say is, God has called us to be salt and light in the earth, and that really is what drives me. I know when I go into the room, I'm going to be noticed. I'm a 6'3" large black man, and so I'm not going to be ashamed of it. God has positioned me for a reason, and I try to walk in excellence because that's who He has called me to be. And as far as what I would encourage, the black community to do is to continue to pay attention to what's going on. I think you look at what's going on with all these corporations, and I'm in sales. I'm in biotechnology sales, and everybody is saying Black Lives Matter. We stand with the black community, and the way I translate that is Black dollars matter. And so within our communities, within the Southland especially, my heart is with the Southland. And it's a great opportunity for us to place our demands on these corporations that want our dollars. Chuck D even said in this song, "Shut Them Down, I like Nike, but wait a minute, the neighborhood supports, so put some money in it." And we need to put a demand on these corporations, for them to be more socially responsible. And those demands can come by way of helping to build and reinvest in the infrastructure. We are not all living in poverty. That is a fallacy. However, our infrastructures do need more investment, and we need to demand that. And so, to my white colleagues, that I've had several conversations with, they ask, how can I help, in this? And they didn't understand Black Lives Matter compared to All Lives Matter. They'd be offended. Or they'd be offended with, the term white privilege. I would say that it's going to take empathy on both blacks and whites to really understand somebody else's perspective. Without that level of empathy, things are going to continue to go as they are. And so that would be my cry to the nation is we need to learn to be more empathetic with one another.
I would say in your grief, just learn to be patient with your heart. Take it one day at a time, and just know to give yourself a chance that you are worth it. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Remember, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning, and God will definitely, as He did for me and others, turn your pain into purpose.
That's so good. Y'all have preached tonight. Come on, give God praise at home. This has been amazing, amazing, amazing. I thank God for all of our panelists today. I thank you all so much for taking the time to be here tonight. And I really hope that through these last couple of weeks that you have been encouraged, FMC. We've tried our best to try to use our platform to make a difference and to try to educate the people. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, I know in times like these you can feel helpless and hopeless, but I want you to know that no matter how hopeless or helpless you feel, there is something that we all can do, and it has been articulated even tonight in a roundabout way of these things that we can do. As I said before, number one, always use your voice. That's what we're doing. We have as a church, we have a voice, and so this is why we've had these town halls for the last 3 weeks. Why? We want to use our voice to impact our people, to impact our community. So don't be afraid to use your voice. Don't be afraid to speak out and to speak up when necessary. Don't be afraid to educate other people with empathy, to let them know my perspective. This is how it should be. Use your voice. We all have a platform at some level. Use it for positivity. Number two, vote. We've got to vote. You can go to vote.org .org if you're not registered to vote, and you can register to vote. We have to make our vote count in these elections because we need to see change through policy. We have to see change by putting the right people in office. And so as we're protesting, as we're speaking truth to power, as we're using our voice, we got to continue to vote. And then thirdly, we got to support our village. As you said, black dollars matter. And so we have to support black-owned businesses to make sure that our money is circulating throughout our community. And so we have to do that. We're getting ready to celebrate Juneteenth, a time where we are remembering the Black Wall Street, a great example of what it means to support your village. I believe if we do that today, we'll see so much empowerment in the African American community. So be not weary in well-doing. I believe with all my heart, in due season, if we keep fighting, we're going to reap if we faint not. Come on, do you believe that? Come on, give God praise at home. We thank God tonight. Once again, what a wonderful conversation. We thank you so much, FMC. Listen, before we go, it's time to give, and we are excited about this opportunity that we have to give here at FMC. Many of you know that anytime we worship or come together as a church, as we're doing tonight online, we are to give God an offering. We ought to present something to God. And so, as you know, you have 6 ways that you can give here at FMC. Let me encourage you to give one of those 6 ways. You can go to our website, faithmovers.org. Go through Zelle, giving at faithmovers.org. Go through our Cash App, $ Faith Movers Church. Of course, you can mail it in. But however you give tonight, allow God to lead you. And we thank God for all of our givers. Many of you responded by giving our church anniversary offering of $100 that we do every year. If you have not done so, please, ma'am, please, sir, you can do this to support our church. I know you are proud of the great things that we're doing here at FMC, and I thank God for all of our givers, all of our supporters, and for those who are giving tonight. I want to just speak a blessing over your gifts. Father, we thank you for the privilege and the blessing that we have to give. God, continue to bless our gifts as we invest and sow into your kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Everybody said amen. Come on, give God praise. Listen, a couple quick announcements I want to give you before we close out tonight. Remember, on this Saturday, we're having another pop-up pantry. It is going to be awesome. We are excited about our pantry. Last time we had this major pantry, we were able to feed over 1,100 households, and we're excited about it on this Saturday. It is for the entire South Suburbs. You can come on and be a part of this food pantry going down here at Faith Movers Church. We have marking flyers out on our social media pages. If you see them, would you do me a favor and share these to your page so that other people can be a part? It's free food, y'all. It don't cost nothing, and I'm telling you, they got some good stuff. And I believe it's going down at 10 a.m., at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. this Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. here at Faith Movers Church, 425 Exchange Street, University Park. It's going to be great. And then, of course, remember, this Sunday, we are back at FMC for our online services at 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. As you know, this Sunday coming up, it is Father's Day. I'm excited. I got a powerful word on Sunday. I'm preaching a message entitled, Daddy, Don't Quit. Whatever you do, you don't need to miss this word. Daddy, don't quit. I'm preaching to some fathers who are thinking about tapping out. I'm telling you, this word is for you. It's going to bless your life and your entire family life. So meet us online on all of our social media platforms at 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. It is going to be a blessing. And then after each service on this Sunday, we're starting something that we call Overflow, where you can come into a Zoom setting and talk and fellowship with your other brothers and sisters. You know, usually when we get through preaching and having service in church, you out in the hallway, you out in the cafe talking, chatting up, fellowshipping. Well, we're going to be having what we're calling Overflow. After our 8 a.m. service and 11 a.m. service, you can be a part of Overflow with people in your community, and you can fellowship, talk about the message, catch up with one another. It's going to be an awesome experience. If you want to be a part of that, you can still sign up, text the word overflow to 708-329-8823. 708-329-8823. The word overflow. And of course, we'll hook you up so you can be a part of the great fellowship that's going on this Sunday at FMC. And then last but not least, we want to be in prayer. We've experienced a tough loss at our church this past week with the loss of a dear member of our church, Sister Robinson, Sister Latrell Robinson, who was a faithful member of our church, a part of our greeters ministry, and she would always greet each person as they come in with a beautiful smile. She loved this church. She loved being a part of this ministry, and she has gone home now to be with the Lord, and they're going to be celebrating her life this Saturday back in her hometown there in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And so we're going to be praying for the Robinson family, her daughter and brother Robinson. We want to keep them in our prayers during this time of bereavement. She was able to be here, y'all, on this past Friday at our pre-recorded service. And the last message she heard me preach is a message I'm going to preach in a couple weeks entitled Called to Make a Difference. And I'm telling you, and that really represents what her assignment. She was called to make a difference. And so we're going to be praying for the Robinson family. And of course, also we're praying for Sister Deborah Randall, as we'll be having her homegoing services here at the church on Monday with a limited amount of people. But we're going to celebrate her life, a faithful member of our church who loved this ministry. We're going to be celebrating her, and we continue to pray for her, Sister Husky, and the entire family, that they would be strengthened, they would be encouraged during this time of bereavement. We have to comfort one another, strengthen one another, and be there for one another. So let's keep on praying for our brothers and sisters, and let's keep them lifted, because together, man, we stick together, we can make it through all that we're going through. Listen, FMC, I love you. You know I miss you so much. Listen, man, I got some breaking news soon that I'm going to share with you, but I'm just going to tell you, man, I don't believe it's not going to be long that we'll be back up in this church. It may not be the way it used to be, but, man, we'll be back up in here to celebrate Jesus, to praise God, and to have worship as a family. Until then, you know, we're praying for you. We love you. Keep watching online. Keep spreading the word. And, of course, in the morning at 7 a.m., we're on that prayer call. And I love each of you, and I'm praying for you. I'm covering you. Please pray for me. Lady Harry made it back home, y'all. You know, she was in Georgia for a little bit, but she made it back home, and I am the most happiest man rolling in the whole wide world for a bunch of reasons, but I'm just glad she is home. Amen. In Jesus' name. We thank God for her. We love you so much. Once again, could you celebrate our panelists? They did a great job tonight. Thank you all so much. I want to tell you, I love each of you all. I appreciate each of you all. In times like these, you can't take no life for granted. I just want you to know, as your pastor, I love you. I appreciate all that you do for the ministry, and thank you all so much for being here tonight. All right, FMC, I love you. I'll see you in the morning at 7 a.m. Until then, remember, whatever you do, always be a faith mover. We're signing off. We'll see you Sunday. Good night. God bless you.